most likely your draft is right around the corner. And you've got probably a lot of people in your ear telling you to go robust RB, zero RB, or some RB strategy. Well, Joe and I are here today to talk to you about our running back rankings with tiers. If you don't do a draft with tiers, you're making a mistake because you want to know who is in the tier with that same value. Joe and I are going to go through our top 30 running backs.
Hike!
So there's going to be 4 tiers. Joe, why don't you start us off with your tier 4 guys?
All right, so my tier 4 starts at number 30 with David Montgomery. Then I have Dalvin Cook at 29, Khalil Herbert at 28, Cam Akers at 27, Rachaad White at 26, Alvin Kamara at 25, Javonte Williams at 24, Antonio Gibson at 23, Kenneth Walker at 22, James Cook at 21, and Travis Etienne at number 20.
Okay, so I got a little bit of a smaller tier 4 here. So in my tier 4, I've got Alexander Mattison at 30, Isaiah Pacheco at 29, 28, I've got James Cook, 27, Brian Robinson, 26, David Montgomery, and 25, DeAndre Swift. Interestingly to note, Joe, and we're going to be having a back and forth about this, I do not have Breece Hall or Dalvin Cook in my top 30.
So, Steve, that's some major disrespect for this, Jets running back room here and the Jets offense as a whole. Like, why are you leaving off Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall?
Yeah, I think a part of the reason why I have both of them outside my top 30 is because I think, first off, for Breece Hall, because obviously people are going to be throwing tomatoes at me for why I have him not in
Myself
the top
included.
30, because that's definitely not the consensus. And I think for the reason why is I just don't think he's going to play a full 17 games. I factor that into my projections, and as a result, my rankings are determined based on what I think they're going to do during the season. Because I don't think he's going to play a full 17 games, that hinders what he's able to do. If you actually look at his fantasy points per game, it's going to be more in line with some of the top tier players in that tier 2, tier 1. But because he's missing so many games, it hurts him. And then on top of that, you've got Dalvin Cook in there, who I think they're going to balance that workload. So is it, if they're both getting work each game, I think it's really going to affect both of their ceilings. They may have a decent floor. But as a result, I'm a volume guy, so I'm always looking to have greater volume. You like the explosion, and so because of that limited volume, it gets me concerned. And so as a result, I don't really like either of them because I think they're just gonna take from each other.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, obviously you haven't been watching Hard Knocks. Breece Hall, man, he still looks explosive as ever, and that's what I get excited about, just watching his explosiveness. I do think, he'll probably have a slow start to this year, but I think for the second half of the season, Breece Hall could be one of those league winners for you down the stretch.
Yeah, you've definitely got a few guys that I actually don't even have in my top 30. I know you're a big fan of Kenneth Walker. You got him in this group. I do not have him in my top 30. I do not have Cam Akers or Khalil Herbert in my top 30. So we definitely have some differences here. Why do you have some of these guys here in this top 30 group?
Well, I mean, I got these guys because I think they're, like you mentioned, Khalil Herbert. I think he's going to have the lion's share of that offense we've seen in preseason. One encouraging for Khalil Herbert that I've seen is the fact that he's been on the field in third downs in these preseason games. I mean, that one screen pass he took to the house earlier in the preseason, that was a third down play. I think that was kind of one of the concerns, us fantasy fans would have, once they drafted Roschon Johnson. That's kind of what he did in college. But Herbert looks like he's going to be potentially on the field for all 3 downs. And if that happens, he's going to be up there. And I know you're not a Cam Akers fan, but there's a chance, like, he's not battling anybody in this Rams offense. And I know it could be a bad offense, but there's still some pieces there, and he's going to get a heavy workload. He saw in some encouraging signs at the end of last year there. Second year, coming out of that injury, he could be better than you think.
I disagree. You've got Zach Evans, the rookie. I think is going to contend for carries. You've got Kyron Williams, sophomore, coming in. He was. I don't trust it. Cam Akers was put in the doghouse, was like left for dead, and then all of a sudden he came back and he did his thing. But you got to remember, Matthew Stafford wasn't in the offense. The Rams were a mess at the end of the year. I'm just not buying it. I just don't. I don't see it. I'm not going to hang my hat on him. And I'm going to take a pick and have it be wasted. And you're just all, I feel like his ceiling is limited and his floor is very questionable. So why would I spend high for him?
Yeah, I'm not saying spend high to him. He's on my lower tier of 30. So, I mean, I'm not like saying spend high on him, but I think he's a guy, you could possibly take a flyer on later in drafts. And I think he's a potential sleeper, this year. And I think a lot of people kind of like you are kind of, are turned off on him and turned off on this Rams offense. But who knows? They could end up surprising.
So there's one guy in this group, Joe. What's the one flyer you're taking? This is a guy or a guy you're targeting. Who's a guy that you're targeting in this group that you really like the value?
Yeah. Well, there's two. I really like Antonio Gibson. Obviously, if you've watched any of these recent shows, I've talked about him quite a bit. I just like how involved he's potentially going to be in that Eric Bieniemy offense as a receiver. And then, James Cook's the other guy I really like. Unfortunately, so far in drafts, I haven't been able to get him. People have just gone up, over me. But it looks like, he's been getting all the RB1 opportunities for the Bills offense. Damien Harris really hasn't shown anything as far as taking carries away or workload away from him. So James Cook, is another guy I'm rising on as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn between the two. I'm thinking here. I was going to say James Cook as well. I actually was surprised. So my emotions would tell me he should be ranked higher, especially as a Bills fan. But I got to follow the projections. I would have told you that I would have definitely have ranked him ahead of Brian Robinson had the numbers not say that. So that was kind of surprising to see. But I think my concern is I think Damien Harris will be involved. And I do think that even there's a possibility of Latavius Murray possibly getting some love as well. So as a result, I think his upside is limited. But I do like him in this lay. I think he has a path to being really good. The other guy who has a path, but way more risky, is DeAndre Swift. That Eagles room is very scary. But if he gets work, he probably won't get a Miles Sanders workload. But there's a lot of vacated carries there. So who is gonna? Will it be? I just don't know if you look at it, I thought Gainwell was going to be more used as a receiving back, but if you look at the stats so far, he really hasn't been. So I don't really know he's undersized. He's not being used in the receiving game. Rashad Penny gets injured all the time. Like there's a case for DeAndre Swift. I don't know. I have this tug of war with him a lot. I don't know I know you are against him, and I typically am, but I'm starting to have a little bit of a tug of war with him.
Yeah, I am against DeAndre Swift, but you know what I'm also against? This whole freaking Eagles, running back room. I'm just out on them. I don't know who the heck it's going to be. I don't trust Rashad Penny. I know they really like Kenneth Gainwell, but then also sometimes you see Boston Scott coming in there and stealing away touchdowns as well. I get the path for DeAndre Swift and everything, but I just don't trust this running back room for the Eagles, and I'm just avoiding it altogether.
All right, Joe. So let's transition over to tier 3. Who do you got in tier 3?
All right. In tier 3 at number 19, I've got Miles Sanders. 18 is Breece Hall. 17 is Alexander Mattison. 16 is J.K. Dobbins. 15 is Dameon Pierce. 14 is James Conner. Najee Harris at 13. And number 12 is Aaron Jones.
So for my tier 3, I've got Alvin Kamara at 24, Travis Etienne at 23, James Conner at 22, Jonathan Taylor at 21, Javonte Williams at 20, Dameon Pierce at 19, A.J. Dillon at 18, Aaron Jones at 17, Antonio Gibson at 16, and Zach Charbonnet at 15. We've got a couple interesting picks here, but I'm going to specifically talk to you first. You love Breece Hall so much. How could you possibly have Alexander Mattison and J.K. Dobbins ahead of Breece Hall?
Well, I think that is because, like I said, I think Breece Hall is going to get off to that slow start. And I don't know. These guys are going to be playing, the full season. I'm projecting. Obviously, injuries can happen, especially at the running back position. But I think for Brees Hall, I'm not really sure what the first half of the season is going to look like, but I do think he's going to turn it on in the second half. So that's kind of was my thought process on putting those guys higher.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
really like Madison, so that's why I'm surprised that you have him so high.
I'm not the biggest Madison fan either, but it's just the fact of the matter is he's the best running back on the Vikings, and I just don't know. I just don't see these other guys like taking that much workload off of him, and they got to use somebody.
Well, I mean, you did see DeWayne McBride recently get cut as well, who could have been a possible player in that backfield. So that was interesting. You gave me a face about Zach Charbonnet, so I'm going to talk about him. He's a guy we talk about a lot these days, but I'm worried about Kenneth Walker. You keep telling me it's not a concern. He's got a groin injury. He's there, right? Who even knows if he's going to be able to start the season? Charbonnet is going to be able to, if it's a race between the two of them, he gets the first crack at it, and they may never look back. To me, I think that he is a dual threat running back. There's a reason why they drafted him in the second round. Kenneth Walker became a RB1 overnight after Rashad Penny got injured. So if Kenneth Walker can't stay on the field, Charbonnet is going to be a smash this year.
Yeah, I know you keep trying to sell me Charbonnet over Kenneth Walker. I'm just not buying it, man. Kenneth Walker to me is still the guy, and you're right. I'm not as concerned about the groin injury as you are. We'll see if he misses week 1. I'm not so sure that he will. Yeah, I don't know. I disagree with you on Charbonnet. Like, everyone's saying he's just this smash player, but I don't know. I just haven't seen it, and I guess we'll see it once the season starts here.
Now, I want to talk about one other player here. You do not have Jonathan Taylor in your top 30. Now, we just recently, this video is on the cusp of him not being traded, being placed on the PUP. So you must be scared.
Oh, I'm very scared. I mean, the fact that he was placed on the PUP, scared me even more. Like, I was concerned with Jonathan Taylor, just because of the whole contract things and the in and out of camp, rehabbing these injuries. But the fact that he's starting on the PUP and missing at least the first 4 games now, just shows you he's not fully recovered. I don't know when he's going to be fully recovered. So I'm just avoiding Jonathan Taylor. And plus, I'm just concerned even when he does come back. We all know that the ceilings of running backs get affected with a rookie mobile quarterback like they have in Anthony Richardson. So yeah, I'm at this point, I'm not taking a chance on Jonathan Taylor.
Joe, this is a procedural move. You got to read between the lines here. This has nothing to do about injury. This is a spat between him and the Colts, and they're designating him with. They don't want him to have a roster spot, so they're doing what they need to do so that they can carry another man on the roster. This is totally procedural.
Well, then why didn't they just trade him? They said there was 2 teams giving them fair value. I know it wasn't the value they were looking for, but if you're going to play these games,
you know the answer. Then Ballard said he didn't get the value he was looking for. That's why he didn't get traded.
I don't know. I truly believe he's still not recovered from the injury. I don't think this is just procedural.
So you think he wasn't going to pass his physical?
I don't know. That's what I mean. I've been concerned. Like I've been more concerned about Jonathan Taylor coming back from injury than I have about this whole contract situation.
What?
Oh yeah.
Oh no! This is all politics, Joe.
Well, then why didn't they just put him? Why didn't they just put him on the NFI list then and not pay him the whole year? Like he said he was going to.
No, because it just helped. We're not going to get into the logistics of that. I think that it's a logistical move. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. He will play this year. I just think he's going to be limited in playing. So as a result, that's where I have him.
Yeah, we can agree to disagree on that. I think I'm worried about this ankle, man. I don't think he's fully recovered from it.
Interesting. So who's the guy you're targeting in this tier?
Honestly, one of my favorite guys of the group here. I know I've talked to him about him before, but it's Dameon Pierce for me. I've been rising on the guy. I've seen him catch the ball more, and really that's all I needed to see. If this guy's involved in the passing game, we've already seen what he can do on first and second downs and around the goal line, getting those touchdowns. So he's a guy that I've been rising on and really liking this tier.
Yeah, for me, I think my target guy is AJ Dillon. I am way higher than him than most. I don't even think you even have him in your top 30. I think the offense is going to completely change. I think they're going to focus more on a ground and pound. I don't think they're going to have Jordan Love throw as much. I think it's going to help him in that offense. Aaron Jones is not getting any younger. He's getting a lot older. Don't think he's going to be utilized as much as he used to be. So I think he's a sneaky value if he can obviously be an RB2. So I like him. I feel like I could get him late. I think he could pay dividends.
Yeah, you definitely can. I think part of it is I just got caught up in the hype train of AJ Dillon last year and got burned by him. So I'm still scarred from last year. And then I also saw him run, which his explosiveness that I had seen in previous years last year was just gone. I mean, this guy was just hitting the line of scrimmage and just falling over for like 2 yards. It was in like I'm like, what? This isn't the
That's what
AJ.
Derrick Henry does. I think works for him.
Nah, Derrick Henry can still break the big ones. I mean, like, it literally looked like AJ Dillon was getting shot at the line of scrimmage last year, and I'm like, this is not the guy that I saw from like a couple of years ago, even when he's plowing guys over and getting at least more
Oh,
than two
brother.
yards.
Well, it's a contract year, Joe. He's going to want to ball out so he can cash out. So he could do anything he can to get the money.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
All right, so going over to tier 2, who do you got in tier 2, Joe? So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store.
All right, tier 2. So number 11, I've got Jahmyr Gibbs. Number 10, Ramondre Stevenson. Number 9 is Joe Mixon. At 8, I have Tony Pollard. Number 7 is Josh Jacobs. And Saquon Barkley is at number 6.
So for my tier 2, I've got Tony Pollard at 14, Jahmyr Gibbs at 13, Rachaad White at 12, Miles Sanders at 11, Ramondre Stevenson at 10, Christian McCaffrey at 9, Najee Harris at 8, Joe Mixon at 7, and Josh Jacobs at 6. I thought for sure I was going to get some booze out of you when I said Christian McCaffrey is at number 9.
Yeah, I mean, you do your projections. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with him. You probably don't have him playing all 17 games. Even though he played a full season last year. I mean, that's just disgrace to my man Christian McCaffrey at 9. He definitely deserves to be in that tier 1. His volume in that San Francisco 49 offense is there, and he's a crucial part of that. So number 9, that's some major disrespect.
I understand that, but if you look at what he's done, I had a great year last year. I will not discount that. He did phenomenal. But the year before that, he played 7 games. The year before that, he played 3 games. He's 27 years old. That's on the older side of a running back. You also have Elijah Mitchell in the fold as well, who was not healthy the entire year. I understand.
Yeah, never gonna be.
If he takes a little bit of workload, it's something. It's something. So all I'm saying is I don't have him playing a full season, and as a result, that's where he's ranked. And I fantasy points per game wise, I think he's going to do really well. I just don't see him playing the full season, and so as a result, that's my projections tell me he's going to be there.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, from Christian McCaffrey's perspective, I'm not concerned about Elijah Mitchell at all. You want to talk about a guy that can't stay on the field? It's that guy. He shows flashes and bursts here and there, but he always tweaks something and misses time. I don't know. I think McCaffrey has a chance of staying healthy. I feel like his injuries were just kind of fluke things that popped up here and there. He never really, to my knowledge, like I never thought he had any like major injury or anything that could really, hamper him at this point. So I like him to play the full year, and the volume in the 49ers offense. He is the PPR guy that you want.
Interesting. I mean, from the receiving standpoint, I don't disagree. But there's just, I don't know, Joe. I just think there's a little bit more questions than you're making it out to be. Deebo Samuel, if you think he's going to come back to where he was before, how much is he going to be utilized as a gadget player? Is Brock Purdy going to come back and be the Brock Purdy that we saw last year? He was not as good with Sam Darnold, if I'm not mistaken, as the quarterback when he was in Carolina. So I'm just saying there are some. It's not a guarantee that Christian McCaffrey is going to be who you think he's going to be.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a smash for this 49ers offense. You mentioned Sam Darnold when he was over in Carolina. For whatever reason, before McCaffrey was traded, Carolina was doing whatever it took for them not to give him the ball, even though he was the best offensive player. The checkdowns weren't happening in Carolina for whatever reason. I couldn't even imagine it, and especially being a McCaffrey owner, I was very frustrated. But then he goes over to San Fran and they love to dump it down to him and just figure out creative ways to get him involved.
Well, I think you might be disappointed, so buckle up.
Hey, we'll see. I'm putting it out there. I mean, yeah, he's the PPR guy I want for sure.
So there are some differences between you and me. So we are similar with when it comes to Gibbs. We both like Gibbs. We both like Stevenson, Mixon. Some of the same guys here. I am definitely higher though. It looks like on Rachaad White and Miles Sanders, much higher on Rachaad White than you. I'm assuming you think that Sean Tucker is going to be stealing the show from Rachaad White. You just think that inefficiency of that offense is going to lead to Rachaad White not doing so well.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's, it's not really Sean Tucker, but I mean, Sean Tucker has looked good. I think it's just the lack of efficiency that we've seen not only from the Buccaneers offense, but Rachaad White himself. I mean, last year, he was getting opportunities in the checkdowns and just wasn't doing anything with it. That offensive line is bad. Jensen is now out. Yeah, I just think it's a bad offense and his lack of efficiency. I still like him and just not as high as you because the volume is potentially going to be there, but the volume is really what's making him fantasy relevant.
So who's your target in this round? Who's the guy that you feel like is a good value and you'd be happy getting him in your draft?
Yeah, I would say I actually really like the value that Joe Mixon is bringing right now. I feel like he's the forgotten guy, and everyone is concerned about this legal trouble in the offseason. That's behind him. He's going to be available the whole season, and I'm just not scared of the other options. Samaje Perine's gone from that offense, and he had a great amount of volume last year, and I don't see why that wouldn't continue this season.
Joe, you've been burned before. You're making a mistake.
I know I've been burned by him before, but I mean, I'm willing to go back to the well. I mean, he had some great games last year. I had him on, a couple of my teams last year, and he performed pretty well. And I mean, Joe Burrow likes to check it down to him as well, so that's valuable for the PPR. And that's what I mean between his rushing and passing volume that he gets. If he scores some more touchdowns this year, he's gonna, you'll be happy.
Yeah, all kidding aside, I actually think that Mixon's a pretty good value because I like volume and who's going to contend with him. I think they could rely on him quite a bit. I think he's got something to prove, so I think he could be pretty good. My value pick here, the guy I'm targeting, is Miles Sanders. I'm a little interested as far as his injury is concerned. I'm a little shaky on that, but if he gets the workload that I think he's going to get, I think he's going to be doing very, very well. There is nobody behind him that's going to steal the show. I think he's going to get a lot of. You saw that leaked interview, whatever the Panthers promoted, talking about Miles Sanders in his rookie year having all those targets. If he gets all those targets plus the rushing carries that he could command based on what he's done in the past to kind of help relieve some pressure from Bryce Young, I think Miles Sanders is going to be a smash play.
Yeah, he definitely could be. I'm just I'm a little concerned about that Panthers offense as a whole. You got a rookie quarterback and Bryce Young, then the offensive line has just looked awful this preseason. And, Miles Sanders has had the advantage of playing behind the best offensive line in football with the Philadelphia Eagles. So now you're going to an offense with a rookie quarterback, bad offensive line. I get the potential workload, but I think that does definitely decreases ceiling and upside.
I don't know what to do with you with your hate of Bryce Young. That's got to change.
What? I mean, he hasn't even looked that great in preseason. I mean, that
Uh,
offensive line is terrible. I mean, I don't know if you've watched any of the Panthers preseason games thus far, but Bryce Young has had like zero time back there.
all right, let's turn the page to tier one. Who do you got in tier one?
All right, tier one. So at number 5, I've got Derrick Henry. At number 4, I have Nick Chubb. At number 3, I've got Bijan Robinson. Number 2, Austin Eckler. And at number 1, my guy, Christian McCaffrey.
He's definitely your guy. There's no doubt. And I'm in 2 of your drafts, so you can have him. But my 5 I got here in my top 5 for tier 1. Derrick Henry at 5, Saquon Barkley at 4, Austin Eckler at 3, Nick Chubb at 2, and Bijan Robinson at 1. I got to be honest, I was really surprised to see Nick Chubb as high as he was because I've been kind of calling him fool's gold, but I guess I'm the fool. Because when I did the projections, I was like, wow, I think he could actually do pretty well. So I think he could do very well this season. Really like him. What do you think about the whole Bijan Robinson thing? I have him number 1. I think he's going to get a huge workload. You obviously have him as a tier 1 player as well. The hype's going to be around him, but people maybe, are they scared off that he was on the depth chart? He was 3rd on the depth chart. Like, is that a legitimate thing? That Arthur Smith's playing games? Is he going to continue to play games during the season? I mean, he did it with Kyle Pitts. What says he doesn't do shenanigans during the regular season?
Well, if Arthur Smith cares about winning, I know he doesn't care about our fantasy teams at all, or doesn't care about fantasy football. But if he cares about winning, he'll start to give these playmakers the ball between Pitts and Bijan Robinson. But I've told you this before. I don't care about preseason depth charts. They really don't prove anything to me. That I could care less. It's just a narrative that the media likes to use, and like, oh, this guy's at number 3, like you mentioned, Bijan. Like, it's like the Texans coming out earlier saying, oh, we're not sure if CJ Stroud is going to be the starting quarterback. It's like, yes, he is. You took this guy in the top 5 to be your starting quarterback. He is absolutely going to be your week 1 starting quarterback. So I feel the same way with these preseason depth charts. I don't put much stock in it.
So I would ask you who you would take in this group as your target, but I already know the answer. So why don't you give our audience a case, give a 1-minute case or less for why people should be drafting Christian McCaffrey?
I mean, I've talked about Christian McCaffrey a lot. I can talk about somebody else. If you want to hear,
this is a bad sign that you're trying to not talk about Christian.
No,
McCaffrey.
I'm just saying I've talked about him a lot. I could bring a little bit of exposure to somebody else. If you want to hear my take on Christian McCaffrey, why I would take him number 1 overall, you just watch the My Guys episode. I break it all down there. But
so who's your pivot? Who's your pivot then? Yeah. Who's the other guy?
My pivot would be Nick Chubb. I think a lot of people kind of like us, before haven't had the highest props for him. But at the end of the day, like, this guy has just been ultimately consistent at the running back position. Kareem Hunt's no longer there. He, should see an increase in targets this year, in the receiving game as well. And we already know what a talented runner this guy is between the tackles as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you. I would also say Chubb as well. I think that all the points you made, I think that he's going to be heavily utilized in that offense. I'm a volume guy, and I think he's going to get a huge amount of volume. With Derrick Henry, you've got the concern of possibly Tyjae Spears. How much does he spell in the role with him? He's not getting any younger, right? Saquon Barkley, can he stay healthy? Stayed healthy last year. Can he keep it up? Plus, they've got all these other options in the offense. So will he be the focal point that he was last year? And then Austin Eckler, you got the whole contract drama. They're just going to let Justin Herbert throw it all over the yard. They got Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. This could be like the air raid show. So then it's like, okay, sure, Eckler will be involved in the passing game, but will they get as many rushing touchdowns? People don't realize how many rushing touchdowns he's been getting over these past few years. I want to say it's like 7+ over the past 3 years. I could check that, but I think it's just one of those things people don't realize. Even though he's a smaller guy, the guy gets a ton of touchdowns in the rushing game, which really helps his stock. Yeah, 13 this past year and 12 the year before that. So that obviously has a huge bearing on his fantasy value.
Yeah, he definitely has been awesome at getting the touchdowns, and if he sees any touchdown regression, that's going to affect his overall. But the other thing with Nick Chubb, like you mentioned with these other guys, is like the injury risk. I mean, this guy somehow has been able to just carry the workload and stay on the field and really be relatively healthy throughout his career.
So that does it for our top 30 running backs rankings with tiers. If you didn't get a chance to watch it yet, go ahead and check our quarterbacks one. We're going to be doing wide receivers tomorrow, and then we got tight ends on the way. Hopefully, these videos will help you during your draft and you do well this season. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.